All right. Good morning, everybody. It's 10 o'clock, at least at my machine, CET. I'm not sure where people are joining from in terms of time zones, but here where I'm from, it's 10 o'clock Central European time. My name is Ilko Kruisinga. I represent the Smart Cities Marketplace team. And together with our colleagues at the Covenant of Mayors, we have developed let's call it a dialogue. It's not really a webinar, a dialogue between cities and investors on how to bridge the finance gap in cities. We have laid out a short program for you. I am just doing the introduction, going through the agenda right now, which you should see on your screen. After my short introduction, I will hand over to two colleagues who are also in this meeting. First of all, Francisca Bacon, who is a policy officer within the energy transition arm of the city of Groningen. The city of Groningen is actually a town up in the north of the Netherlands. And we also have Carlos Sanchez, who is with Whitehelm Capital. And Whitehelm Capital is managing the Smart City Infrastructure Fund. Carlos's Whitehelm Capital is also a member of the Smart Cities Marketplace Investor Network, and he will be talking about what it takes to have a private investor on board in a smart city or climate neutral city project. We have developed some questions for both Carlos and Francisca to really enter into a dialogue. And if there's anything unclear, you may be asking questions over the chat by raising your hand. Thereafter, we have two short interventions by my colleague Jorge Rodriguez de Almeida, who is a member of the matchmaking team of the Smart City Marketplace, and we also have an intervention by Anja de Cunto, who is with the Covenant of Mayors, and they will be explaining the types of support that both parties can offer if you are looking for financial support to develop your climate neutral / smart city project. Thereafter, we have time available for you to ask any questions you might have for all of the four speakers, and hopefully you have lots of them. Because this really provides you with an opportunity to look directly to some key stakeholders in the finance landscape around climate neutral and smart cities. Now, before we start, I think you should know that this webinar is being recorded and will be made available through Covenant of Mayors as well as the Smart Cities Marketplace's web platforms. Again, if you have any question, just raise your hand by the familiar hand in the top bar of Teams. And before we start, we really wanted to learn a little bit more about you. So Anja has prepared a little so-called Slido. Probably you have seen that before. Just by going to Slido, and we have let's say a warm-up question for you to build a bit of an understanding of who you are and your position towards finance and climate neutral and smart cities. So Anja, could you maybe explain the process for going to Slido?
Yes, so you can just, we'll just share, basically you just have to take your phone, you can search for slido.com, and then 1 second I will be sharing actually the password to access the specific page where you can, we just have prepared a couple of questions to get to know more about you. So just take your phone, you can either scan the QR code that you can find here, or just search for slido.com and type in dialogues with capital D. Just literally a few questions to get to know about you. Is everybody ready? Okay, let's start. So here it's a simple question, maybe not that simple. You can let us know from strongly agree to strongly disagree. I know what information an investor wishes to see in a climate neutral smart city project proposal. So here we can see actually the people that are answering. Currently we have 13 that answered. There is quite a lot of neutral and disagree. So we are currently at 17. I know we have around 40 people joining. If you're just joining us from the webinar, you just have to take your phone or type in your computer slido.com and then dialogues. And you will be able to join us also just to get to know a little bit who is following us this morning. So 19 people have answered, and the strong majority is currently they feel neutral about this question, followed by disagree and agree. So I don't know, it seems very, very mixed, the type of people that are following us today. 21, maybe I give just a couple more minutes if, again, people are just joining us. Okay, 22, okay, so people are still answering. 24. Okay, so 27. Okay, so people are still joining, but there seems to be still lots of people that feel neutral about this question, and second majority that disagree. So they don't know what kind of information an investor wishes to see in a climate-neutral smart city project proposal. Let's move to the next question. So again, here you can choose between strongly agree and strongly disagree. I know where I can find the right investor for a climate-neutral smart city project proposal. Okay, here seems for the moment the answers are more tending towards disagree. Okay, just change to neutral. Again, here keep a little bit of time for all people to answer. So for this question, we have instead a pretty stronger answer related to disagree. So the public that is following us today does not know yet where to find the right investor for a climate neutral smart city project proposal. Let's go to the final question. I know who to collaborate with to create a bankable, climate neutral or smart city proposal. Again, here the options are from strongly agree to strongly disagree. And those questions are not only to get to know a little bit about you, but also to give you a little bit of a feeling about what we're going to discuss today. And hopefully by the end of this 1 hour dialogue, you should be able to answer better to all the questions, especially if you answer disagree or neutral. Okay, so it seems also for this question, the high majority answer disagree. So 37% out of the 30 people that have answered mentioned they disagree with this sentence, followed by neutral, and only a smaller agree and strongly disagree. So these are the 3 questions just to get to know each other. I will now start sharing again the presentation. I'll leave it to you, Elko.
Thank you, Anja. So indeed, to all of the speakers and participants, we have some missionary work to do. That's clear, at least from from the answers being provided by the audience. So thank you for that. It's really useful, and it's something that we often see as well. That there's a sort of disconnect between cities and the finance world, and to bridge that gap. That's exactly what we're trying to do with this webinar. To make both ends meet a little closer to each other. Now we have asked Francisca and Carlos to prepare a short presentation. I will first ask Francisca to tell a little bit about what's going on in energy transition land in Groningen, and then focus on a particular area of the city, and maybe address some of the options that you are considering for financing the plans that you have put in place. So Francisca, over to you.
Yes, I will see if I can take control I think it's working. Thank you very much, Ilko. You already gave a very good introduction of where Groningen actually is in the northern Netherlands. So it's where you can see the red dot. So I think I don't have to go into more depth. It's a beautiful city. We have around 230,000 inhabitants. And what's very special about Groningen, at least in my opinion, is that we have more than 80,000 students, and more than 10,000 of those 80,000 students are actually internationals. I used to be one of them. I'm originally from Germany, and I decided to stay in Groningen because I was really impressed by, let's say, the innovative infrastructure and all the ambitions we have as a city here. So, we're very ambitious in many different areas, from the social domain to waste management. But of course, I'm here to talk to you today about the energy transition. Groningen has the ambition to be CO2 neutral in 2035. This means that all energy used within the borders of the municipality must stem from sustainable sources. And we're also trying to produce as much energy as possible within our own borders. And we really believe that the energy system will change in the near future. It will go towards, as I already said, more sustainable sources. It will become more decentralized, and it will go towards prosumers, and it will in general be more local and interconnected. And our ambition is 2035. That's actually quite 15 years ahead of both national and also international targets. So we really believe that we must act now, because the costs of doing nothing are very high. And in 2019, we published our energy transition vision, which basically meant that we looked at all the 138 districts we have in the city, and we tried to figure out what the best option would be to make all of those CO2 neutral, which in terms of the built environment really means disconnecting from natural gas. Because in Groningen, we're also dealing with a lot of earthquakes, as you might know. So we literally feel the need, we feel our ground shaking. So we really feel the urge to move towards more sustainable energy. So we have three scenarios. The red ones are the areas where we will have district heating. The blue ones are the areas that will be entirely electric. And the green ones are the districts where we will have some sort of a hybrid form. And this is not set in stone. This is our vision. And currently we're working on translating this vision into an action plan. And for this action plan, we have two main focus points. One of them is and reduction. And I just want to introduce those two ambitions, or let's say tasks, really briefly to you. So energy, or the heat production, for us means that we have to work on improving and strengthening our electric network, so that they can actually take so that they're strong enough in the end. And we're very closely talking to our network operators and administrators on this. And of course, as you already saw on the previous slide, we have to install the district heating in all areas where it's the best alternative. And what's really important for us is that we want to install the district heating as a public utility function. So that means that it has to be available to everyone, and not only those households who can actually afford to make the transition right now. So we will do no cherry picking. It must really be available to everyone. And of course, we have to ensure the sufficient supply of sustainable energy sources. So we have a big focus on solar and wind energy, also other forms, but that's really the main focus right now. And we're trying to do as much of that as possible within our builds or within our own borders. And at the same time, of course, we have to focus on heat demand reduction. And there, the main challenge is that the main responsibility lies with the building owners, because the people at home, I'm a house owner myself, and I have to make the decision to isolate my home, to place solar panels. So it's really a task with the owners, but we also believe that we have an important role as a municipality in that. So that's why we assembled a toolbox, and we are continuously building on it. So we are making it bigger and better for our inhabitants. And that toolbox consists of laws and regulation, financing possibilities, but also very simple information events for our inhabitants so that they know what's going on in the city and what they can do. And what's really important, as I already mentioned, is that really no citizen is left behind. So we have two main instruments for this. One of them is our one-stop shop for the citizens. It's called the Ecological Groningen. That's my main project. And within that, we're working with 31 citizens initiatives. And we're also working with, of course, individual citizens and help them to, well, make their houses more sustainable. So it's really focused on the built environment. And at the same time, we have a similar instrument, and that's really for the entrepreneurs in the city to help them to make more sustainable choices. So yeah, I think that's a short introduction. We have a few conditions that we find very important when it comes to the energy transition. One of them is, of course, effective public participation, because the energy transition is not only a technical transition, but also a social one. And we have to, or we want to include our citizens as much as possible, really from the start. And as already mentioned, no citizen is left behind. So preventing energy poverty is a very important topic for us. Also because Groningen is actually one of the poorest cities of the Netherlands. So that's really an important challenge for us. And connected to that is also the role of neutral energy costs. So that means that the costs for the energy are by no means to increase as a result of the energy transition. And of course, the entire process must be trustworthy and sustainable. Yeah, and of course, we're here today to talk about money. And I wanted to give you some insights into the numbers we are facing or we are dealing with. So as I already said, in our energy transition vision, we found out that for the largest part of the city, the best solution would be a connection to district heating. And the estimated costs for the installation of that are actually 10,000 euros per household. So that's quite a lot, and I think we will get a little bit into that later on as well. If you have any questions, I'm also very happy to explain this amount further. But of course, the energy transition doesn't stop with the connection to district heating. We have to isolate their homes, but we also have to implement the solar energy, solar fields, wind parks. I mean, there is much more that needs to happen. So the total investment to make Groningen CO2 neutral are approximately 10,000 euros per inhabitant. And that also includes children. So that's kind of the breakdown we made. So in total, we have a number of around 2.5 billion euros that we need to achieve our ambition. And we expect to receive around 1 billion from local, regional and national resources. But there's still a gap of 1.5 billion euros that we have to figure out, well, where does the money come from? I'm also very curious to learn today what we have. Sorry, I just saw the question popping in, but I think we'll get into that later. Yes, I'm very curious also to learn from Carlos what, private investments can, what role private investments can play here. So unfortunately, the energy transition is not that simple. Some of the challenges we're facing is how we actually motivate our citizens to take action, how we finance the energy transition while ensuring neutral energy costs, and how do we ensure and produce sufficient sustainable energy. So I hope that I could give you a short introduction, and I'm very happy to receive more questions later.
Thank you, Francesca. That's very clear. Just a bit of clarification. There was a reference to earthquakes. You might wonder, earthquakes in the Netherlands. That has to do with several decades of gas production up in the north, which has created an unstable, let's say, topography there. So people are really suffering from the effects of earthquakes in the north. Just there are a few questions for clarification in terms of. Okay, what would be the sources for your district heating in terms of the heat sources? Maybe you can say a little bit about that, Francesca.
Yes, of course. So we're looking at different sources. We have some district heating installed already, and we're using restwarmte. I think it's like rest or leftover warmth from data centers. And we also have a big data center of Google in the Eemshaven in the north. So we're looking into that. And then there are sugar factories. So we're looking into sustainable sources because that's really important.
Thank you. That's very, very useful. And then there was a question around because you were talking about households, but where do businesses or small offices and stuff like that fit in that scheme?
Well,
Are we talking about only residential, or are we also talking about, let's say, utility space?
We're also talking about utility space, of course. They're equally important. I couldn't get into everything on depth, but I showed the pictures of the 2 one-stop shops we have. The one I'm working for is really focused on the inhabitants, and the other one is on the entrepreneurs. So we have very creative ways of trying to get them along. We also have some great examples of entire business parks who actually tried to become CO2 neutral. We have the Making City Lighthouse project. There's also a business park involved there. So let me know if you want to get into more detail on that.
Right. So any further, let's say, in-depth questions around the nitty-gritty detail of the Groningen work, I think Francisca will be available offline for that.
Yes.
Now, Carlos, you've probably heard this story before. There's a big ambition. There's lots of billions involved, and there's always a gap of. So how can, let's say, a fund like the one you are managing play a role in this? So maybe you could sort of try to address that from what you've heard from Francisca in your presentation as well. So Carlos, the floor is yours.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you very much, Elko. First of all, I wanted to thank the Covenants of Mayors and Smart City Marketplace for having us here today. I think it's always a pleasure to be part of the European family and help them in any way possible. So today I'm gonna give you a very fast presentation of who we are and what we're doing, just to try to help you understand what we're doing here. So I'm gonna talk about Whitehelm and about the Smart City Infrastructure Fund. Whitehelm is an Australian infrastructure fund manager. We have been around for 22 years now, investing in infrastructure. So this means anything that has to do with ports, airports, toll roads, distributed energy networks. We are investing in long-term basis, 10, 15, 20 years, and in what we call core infra, which means that it has like long-term stable returns. We as Whitehelm, we are signatories of the United Nations Principles of Responsible Investment, because we believe that we need to analyze investments from many angles in order to do proper investments. We have a heavy ESG component, and not just because ESG is trendy now, but we have been doing it from the beginning, because in the long term we need to take all of those factors into consideration. Now let me move a little bit into the Smart City Infrastructure Fund. It's again a fund that was born in 2018. It's backed by the largest European pension fund, and it has similar characteristics as our traditional investments. So it's long-term core infra. The main difference is that we are focusing on digital infrastructure, anything that has to do with data collection, carried, and storage. So basically, the idea is that we are investing for two different pots of money, and maybe this one helps you a little bit. So what you see in the left would be the description, the overview of the Whitehelm funds, which are investing in traditional infrastructure. Here we would be looking into energy transition. We are investing in Norway in district heating networks, but also in waste to energy plants. We have a couple of solar farms, wind farms. We are looking into the telecommunication space because we think it's very relevant and helps the sustainability of cities. And we've seen that in the impact that COVID has had. If we hadn't had for the telecommunication networks, we wouldn't have been able to work from home so much, for example. And we're also investing in social infrastructure. On the Smart City Infrastructure, the box to the right, here we are investing in the digital layer. Here we're looking at projects that have to do with electrification of fleets, that have to do with street lighting, that have to do with connectivity within cities, LoRa networks, Wi-Fi networks. We are also deploying private optic fiber networks in the US, and basically the idea that we have is that we would be investing in the city platforms of the future, where we see the city managers sitting in their desk, maybe from home, seeing all of the information that comes from the different services and verticals and infrastructure from the city. And here I'm talking about lighting, I'm talking about transport, I'm talking about air quality, waste management, traffic, anything that is producing data. And the idea is that that data in the future is crossed together and is made available for other people to make good use of that and make other systems more efficient. Just to be clear, we are not interested in exploiting that data, because it hasn't got to do with our risk appetite. And I'm going to stop here, because I could be talking hours and hours, but I don't think it's so interesting for you. But before I leave, I think I'm going to show you the way in which we normally structure our investments, because I think that can be helpful to show the way in which we do the investments. What you see, the blue box that you see, is the special purpose vehicle. That would be the company that we would put together that would provide the services to the city. And here we can talk about street lighting, electrification of buses, city platforms, networks. That company would have a long-term agreement with the city, like 10, 15 years, and in exchange, it would get these services. In exchange of the services, the city would pay a monthly fee, an annual fee, that should be agreed, that would cover for the capex costs, but also for the operation costs. So what you see on the top left corner, that would be the fund, and here we say Skip, but we can also have Vital. That would be the company that would be putting the investment into the project company. Then the project company would build the infrastructure, and then we would have a technology and system integration partners, which is the box to the top right, and that would be the company that would be designing, installing, and operating the infrastructure. The beauty of this is that we can use local companies, which are normally the ones that know better the terrain, and it's a way of contributing to the circular economy that's so important nowadays. The way that we structure the investments are normally through equity, which is different from a loan or from debt, which means that equity is repaid through the cash flows that the company itself, the SPV, generates. One important thing here is that I think it's one of the most important things is about distributing the risks in a fair way, and also sharing the profit sharing between the city and the company. I hope it was clear. I'm going to stop here. Maybe we can touch upon this during the conversation.
Thank you so much, Carlos. So I'm not sure whether this is very technical for the audience, but this is this is very familiar terrain for many of these types of investments, where you build a special purpose vehicle in which there's some form of risk sharing between the city and the investor or investors, could be plural even. So just to build a bridge between Francisco's story and your story, Carlos, you've heard the finance gap that what Francisco was mentioning, but you also heard something around the timeline, the ambition around the timeline. So what would be your recommendation, Carlos, to people like Francisca or the cities like Groningen, if they have this ambition? At what point in time would they need to start thinking around these, the building of such an SPV is because is it a year before the ambition ends, or do you favor an early involvement, or
I think that
just to synchronize the finance with the dot on the horizon in terms of a milestone?
I think that the most important thing it's identifying what the city really needs, because I have been in conversations with people that work for cities that say that I just want an independent network. It's like, okay, but what are you trying to solve? What's your problem? What's your target? No, I want an independent network. It's like, so I think it's important to start understanding the needs of the citizens, and then trying to understand how that's going to be financed. I think that the sooner you start talking about the financing, the better. Also because it will help you understand the type of pot of money that you would be targeting, depending on the investment that you're doing, whether you're developing an app to make sure that the people that live by themselves and maybe are old in the city can have communication with a public officer, or whether you're building or trying to give a service that's exposed to market risk, or you are looking for an investment that's more stable and has less fluctuations. So depending on the type of solution that you want to develop, the earlier you start thinking on how it is going to be paid, the better, because it will help you understand if you need to talk to an infrastructure long-term investment, or if you need to talk to a short-term hedge fund, or if you just need to ask for a public grant, because there are no cash flows behind that service, although that service has a great value for society. So the sooner you get the question, you start asking your questions on how is this going to be financed, the better, because it's a bit sad that you see projects that have been developing for 2 or 3 years, and then they get to the point that, okay, how do we finance this? And then nobody wants to finance it because the way in which it has been structured, it doesn't help. In our case, we belong to the pot of money that's long-term stable. So if the city is thinking of that type of investment, what we need is clarity of cash flows. So we need to understand where those cash flows will come from, the risk that each cash flow has, and how are we mitigating the risks. One of the things that is key when we're putting together these partnerships is the distribution of risks, and I think it's one of the key points. Whenever you are partnering with a city, and building up a project, you need to create an ecosystem, an environment that is fair and has like virtue, like a virtuous cycle. And you need to avoid situations in which there's a conflict, a confrontation between the city and the investor, because that way that's only going to finish like very badly.
Yeah, just one follow-up question on that, Carlos. So what would be the yield expectation for the fund in your case?
It depends a lot. It depends on the geography. It depends on the technology. It depends basically on the risk that we see. Whenever we do an investment, the first thing that we do is a risk analysis, and here we look into financial risk. We look into regulatory risk. We look into technology risk, market risk, and obviously the more risk the project has, the higher the returns need to be. The good thing about us is that we can go very long term. We can go 15, we can go 20 years, we can go 30 years, and that means that the city is benefiting from like a large investment from the beginning without having to commit. It's also true that in 20, 30 years they end up paying for that. So it's not that we are like giving anything for free, but we have like adjusted returns. Depending from 6% IRR to 10% IRR, depending on on the risk that we see.
Right. Okay, thank you, Carl. Before we move over to Francisca, just one more question: Is climate risk? I mean, on your risk radar as well, in terms of
for sure.
ESG type risk?
Yes. So every year we do climate change external analysis of all of the assets that we are managing. And here we see each asset and we get a score of flooding risk, of wildfires, of extreme storms, and it really helps us to repair the assets to what may come in the future.
Right.
It's very funny because it looks as if it's never going to happen and it's very far away. But we need to be on top of that because we are investing in 10, 20, 30 years. So we have that like long-term horizon and we need to be on top of that.
Thank you, Carl. Just Francisca, just over to you. So looking at the picture we have on the screen right now, you see the city as being, let's say, the beneficiary of the work of the project company, but also having to pay for their services. You were mentioning, and you're not the only city, you're as a city looking for ways to create some sort of co-ownership or partnership with the citizens. That some way of local ownership is being arranged for, within the energy transition, but also post the energy transition, because it's clearly also around public acceptance. You were saying, rightly so, no one left behind. So it's also to involve all of the citizens. And one of the ways to do that is have some form of local ownership. Maybe you can comment on that, and I can turn back to Carlos to say, okay, how would local ownership play a role in such a framework?
Yes, definitely. I mean, one very concrete example that I'm currently also involved in is it's called the wind platform, and we're currently investigating if windmills or wind turbines, that's the proper English term, are possible within the borders of the city. So we have 2 locations. And I mean, there will be people living within a radius of 500 to 1,000 meters around those wind turbines. And of course, everyone is in favor of sustainable energy, unless it's in their own backyard. I think we can all imagine that. And so we're really looking into, okay, so in case they would be built there, what can we also give back to people? And what we see is that they're not only interested in a certain, let's say, financial package that they receive every year as a compensation, but we also want to do more. So we look at how can you invest, how can you put the money and improve the nature surrounding it, for instance. What do you do with increasing biodiversity, but also what's the impact on animals, for instance. So we really see that we want to give back not only to the people around. Sorry, I'm seeing the comments on the screen. So that was really nice when the Dutch don't want windmills, then we're really in trouble. That is true. No, so what we really see is that it's very difficult to just say, okay, we place windmills and the people don't profit. So it's really for us a participatory process to see under what conditions and what do people really want. And often it's more than just money. So yeah, the local ownership is a really important aspect.
Thank you, Francisca. Yeah, I was looking at the windmill versus wind turbine comment as well. I get almost slapped if I use the word windmill within my company. But as a Dutch person, it's so natural to say windmill instead of wind turbine. But Carlos, just on the local ownership, involvement of citizens, how could that be arranged? Do you have examples of how that could be arranged within the sort of investment space that you've seen in other projects?
I think that making the citizens part of the solution, I think it's easier because whenever you own something, you can stand behind that. Our funds, we can put together structures in which we have a combination of private funding and public funding. And this is sometimes it's attractive for cities because they want to maybe they want to improve their balance sheet and they want to sell some other assets, but they want to retain control because they believe that the service that these companies are providing are strategic for the city and therefore they want to maintain that balance. So that's something that we can do. It's something that it works. It's about putting in place the right governance mechanisms that gives comfort to the city, but also to the private investor. One of the challenges that I see when we're going too local is the scalability, and this triggers all of the economies of scale. And I think that the way to solve it, maybe it's keeping that local identity that's so important for everybody. You want to be proud of your hometown and your village, but I would say that it's good. It would be useful to cluster those small initiatives to put together, and that again, I think it goes also with the spirit of the European Union, which is like grouping together and joining forces. And here we're not only talking about financial economies of scale, but also technological. You see that certain technologies, certain companies don't even pick up a phone if the volumes that they are looking into are too small. So I guess that clustering, putting together similar projects in similar geographies, I think it's something that can help. And I would say that's something that maybe the procurement side and the complicated procurement laws could help. I come from Spain, and there I know that you have the like regional association that they can do tenders like together, like combining different cities. And I think that should be the way, because that way you have a stronger position in the market, and you can push the technology providers and the financial players. So I guess that's something that could make a difference.
Thank you, Carlos. There's so much ground to cover here. Indeed, we haven't touched upon innovative procurement, like the purchasing power that you can arrange if you bundle things as several cities or a region, be like an intelligent customer even for people like yourself. That would create a win-win, but that's difficult terrain. I just want to, in the interest of time, go over to Anja and George to do their 5-minute inputs, and thereafter we have time for further questions. I can see them coming in on my phone, all kinds of questions. So I need to we need to be picking questions, I suppose, because we've probably got too many questions for the time available. But I want to hand over to Anja, who's going to explain to us a bit more of what the Covenant of Mayors can do to help you navigate the finance landscape. So Anja, over to you.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone, and welcome. And also, in the interest of time, I'll try to be extremely brief, because all this information you can find on the Covenant of Mayors website, just to make you a little bit more aware of what's coming up and how we can help you. So we are not specialists in finance, but we strongly believe that we need to help cities in their journey to become climate neutral. And how do we help them? By providing some basic information understanding of what are the possibilities related to funding and finance. But above all, we are believers that there is no need to reinvent the wheel, which means we are more than happy to share successful case studies or help cities get in touch with each other to help each other and learn from the perspective that similar experts might face a similar challenge, even if sometimes they live in different contexts. So to provide an overview, because we still believe there is quite a lot of basic understanding, there is a gap in basic understanding about all the different opportunities that are currently out there. On our website page, under support, you'll find this an interactive page that gives you an opportunity to go in detail on all the different funding and finance options, but also support from financial institution instrument, and also ideas on alternative type of financing schemes. We are now in the process of, as you might know, the European Union budget has recently been approved. So there is going to be, this page is going to go through quite some restructuring, because under the new European Union budget, you're going to have quite a lot more opportunity to finance maybe the studies because we mentioned sometimes the experts are not going to pay for the studies, the feasibility study, but this is something maybe the European Union budget can cover, for example, through project under the Horizon 2020. I saw in the chat that there are some participants of Smart Cities project, or through, for example, technical support from the European Investment Bank for project development assistance, or from the European Energy Efficiency Fund. So this is like literally we try to give you an overview of everything that is possible and how differently you can use it. If it's more a regional level, like the European Regional Development Fund, that you can apply in your own language, thanks to the support of your national member state government, or more to asking directly different type of banks that are currently participating in the technical support together with the European Investment Bank. And also, as I mentioned, we believe that there is no need to reinvent the wheel, and when there is a good case study out there, it is worth disseminating, and also to provide a little bit more understanding on how certain cities around Europe have tried to bridge the gap of finance, and how, again, different solutions that can be used. So I really invite you to go to check this 4 booklet we have recently. Finance, again, they provide really a basic understanding. If you strongly disagree that you don't know where to start, this is where we can help you with. So difference between innovative finance schemes that you can use, the funding program, and how can these maybe help you mobilize finance, and support from financial institutions instruments. And again, case studies, for example, related to the urban innovative action, to get inspiration on how you can also move towards climate neutrality, ideally before 2050. We really hope that most cities will be like Groningen and try to achieve climate neutrality even by 2030, by 2035. So yeah, this was from my side, short and concise, but I think it's necessary to leave more support, more time for the question and answer session. And if you have any question, of course, don't hesitate to come back to us. Oh yeah, sorry, I forgot to say, as this is very important, my colleague Eugenia will not forgive me if I forgot to mention, we have just launched the twinning program. As I said, we might have the opportunity to get in touch with cities that have already passed through a certain journey, certain challenges, and they can help you understand how in your local authorities, in your local environment, you can achieve solutions, for example, related to energy poverty or climate adaptation or financing, why not, or innovation procurement. This is also indeed one of the new area of work. So if you're interested in getting involved, a lot of the travel costs, hopefully we can have travel by then, are reimbursed, but also don't miss on the incredible opportunity to get in touch with experts coming from your same field of action that can help you. And the deadline is the 19th of March, so quite some time, but don't hesitate to get ready in advance, because there is going to be a selection process to be able to participate. And that was it from my side.
Thank you, Francesca. Sorry, Anja. So these are extremely useful resources that the Covenant of Mayors provides to anybody who is having a difficulty navigating the territory, and especially the peer learning program is very useful, because from experience you learn most from those who have gone through a journey before you. George, just a couple of minutes for you to explain a little bit more about what the Smart Cities Marketplace can offer to the audience.
Okay, thank you, Elko, and thank you everyone for joining us, and thank you to the Covenant of Mayors for this joint event where we, as you will see, will show a similar approach, or at least we try to do exactly the same, is to bridge the gap between the finance and the project development, because we do see that there is a huge gap here that needs to be filled, and this is as different ways to be filled. So what we have in our marketplace, among other things, and that's where we are responsible, myself and Elko also, we are called the matchmakers, because we try to match projects with investors. And for that we have a call for projects that is always running in our website. You just need to follow the link that will be available in this presentation that you will get afterwards, or just Google Smart Cities Marketplace and you will find our website inside of the European Commission website. And over here we ask for cities and project developers to submit their project concepts so that we can then link that with investors. As a good example, we had a call that was designed for Covenant of Mayors. So we did a pilot contacting several cities of the Covenant of Mayors, and we were successfully able to join some of those cities with investors. So this is for us of quite relevance, because that means that we help to move forward towards the bankability and towards the implementation of those projects in the ground. So coming back to this call of projects, so it's always open. Any city can go there and submit their concept. And what we will do afterwards is try to connect that project with one of our investors that is in our investor network. We have different types of investors. We have the Smart City Infrastructure Fund that Carlos represents here, but other investors that are looking for smart cities and climate neutral projects. So our role is to select those projects that we got, help them shape their project concept towards a good concept so that we can share it with the investors. If the investors agree, we set up meetings, and hopefully things will move on and go to the ground for the implementation. As a last slide, because I don't want to use my 5 minutes, I want to use a little bit less because it's more important to hear the other speakers. I would like to invite you all, the attendees on this event, to join one of our master classes. So we have different master classes about bankability of smart city and climate neutral projects and strategies. So the master class can focus both on specific projects, how to develop a specific bankable project, or how to develop a climate neutral and smart city strategy. And for this, we have designed the 2 days master classes that has no cost, so it's on the first come first served basis. So we invite you to send an email at matchmaking@EU/smartcities.eu and register yourself. Dates will be announced, but you have plenty of time to book them in your calendars. So this masterclass is focused the financial aspects of the how to develop a project. So basically here, among others, we bring investors also as invited speakers, and we try to follow guidelines that we have on the Smart City Guidance Package. So the idea is to help projects in a very tailored way, because these are small groups, towards the bankabilities of their concepts or projects. And that's it from my side. Thank you all, and yeah, moving on to you, Elko.
Thank you, George. Now, so we have quite a few questions. I just want to take 2 questions before we move over to a planned intervention by a member of the European Parliament. So first of all, one question from Francisca. It was around engagement, because you have your loket, let's call it. Do you have any other tools that you're deploying to engage citizens in the energy transition? Because there are several questions around, okay, it's really important to engage citizens, and no one should be left behind. There's a price tag involved in energy transition. Will people be able to afford it? It's a national debate. I suppose it's also a European debate as well. So Francisca, if you can enlighten us on some of the tools that you're considering or even, let's say, implementing right now.
Yes, of course. I mean, I can talk very long about this, but some things we are doing, I think in general, it's not the most innovative approach that we might have, but it's really just being present in the different neighborhoods. So we have a coffee cart that goes around, for instance. Currently, we are transforming a hydrogen bus that we have. It's a smaller one where 9 people fit in. And we're actually redesigning that as an energy bus so that we can drive around the city and actually get into contact with people. And I think a really important element for us is that we don't see the energy transition as separate from other issues that we have in the neighborhoods. So we have district teams that are present there on a daily basis, and the inhabitants or the citizens know where to find them. And they help them on, well, financial matters, other social areas, when it comes to, schooling for their kids and everything. So, and then energy transition kind of goes into that. And we don't separate it from people who want more green in the neighborhood, for instance. So we have 31 energy-focused citizens initiatives, and we're working very closely together with them. But we also don't say, oh, you want more green in your street? Yeah, you have to be. Please contact a different colleague. So yeah, we're trying to make that a bit broader to reach more people. Yeah, I think that's. I hope that answers the question. I'm also very happy to go on with some one-on-one talks on that more closely. But I think the key really is to try to talk to people and to reach an as diverse group as possible.
Excellent, that's great to hear. Carlos, another question for you. That was really around energy performance contract, let's say principles in relation to an SPV. Could you comment on that? So I think you're still muted, Carlos.
That's right. I was muted. Thank you. So yeah, I think that the classical EPC contract is a good way forward. The important thing is what we were touching upon before, which is that the savings generated from this energy performance contract are shared between the city.
I think we may have lost the connection with Carlos, at least at my end.
I think I lost him as well. So.
All right. So I'm not sure whether Carlos can still hear us, but I suggest that we now move over to planned intervention. It was originally planned for Mr. Pierre Laroutourou, but he couldn't make it, so he has asked his assistants to make an intervention. Timothée Galvert, are you in the call?
Yes, I'm here. Hello, everyone.
So welcome, Timothée. So good to see your face now.
Yes.
So this is now the opportunity for you to make an intervention on behalf of the MEP. So the floor is yours.
Yes. Thank you very much. I'm sure you all have many other very interesting questions, so I'm going to try to be very short. I would like to first start by apologizing on behalf of Pierre, who is unfortunately stuck for urgent family matters. But he wanted to have a quick chat about the real need for ecological financing at local level, because as you all know too well, it is at the local level that we see the first climate change related problems, and it is also at the local level that solutions are created. But for these solutions to be created, we obviously need a lot of financing. And how do cities and regions and local authorities get access to this financing? Well, we believe that the EU should have a much more important part in financing the transition. No European country, no region, no city can finance on its own the transition. So we need much more European mechanisms. For example, in France, the problem of climate financing is a very big issue, and the governments don't always put enough money. For example, that's why the former French environment minister Nicolas Hulot resigned 2 years ago over shortages of financing for his ministry. But now that we explain the problems, what can the EU do? Well, besides, as Anya explained, all the opportunities thanks to the EU budget over the next 7 years that can, finance projects all over the EU through cohesion policies and also local policies. The EU has created, all these procedures that we really encourage you to use, and I'm sure that as Anya explained, we can help you to discover all these procedures and help you guide it through. There are also two new things. Of course, the next generation EU is the recovery plan that will be spent until the end of 2023. That is also going to be a very important leverage for climate financing, because almost 40% of the recovery plan must be spent in climate financing. But there's also the just transition mechanism that is aimed specifically at mobilizing money for the carbon intensive regions, for the regions and cities for which the transition is going to be the hardest. So obviously it's not enough yet, although the recovery plan is a very good first step, because for the first time we have, as you know, European debt. And we believe that that's a good first step towards going for more solidarity in climate spending, in climate financing. So at the European Parliament, Pierre is the general rapporteur for the budget 2021 and a member of the budget committee. Within the budget committee, you can be reassured that we do everything we can to increase climate spending and for the EU to spend much more for climate related policies, and also in general spending more. So yes, that's our fight. If you want to help, because it's very important, you can always talk to heads of state and government before they go to the European Council, because that's unfortunately where most important decisions are made. Here in Parliament, we try, but yeah, we do not have all the leverage to help you increase the EU budget, because we don't have fiscal powers. We also struggle to create taxes just at local level. So there are a lot of similarities, and yeah, we'll try our best to fight for the next years for more climate spending at EU level. And I'm gonna leave it there. Thank you very much. And if there are questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Thank you, Timothée. That was a really passionate intervention to make sure that indeed where the rubber hits the ground, so at the local level, to ensure that there is enough climate finance available, and also for people like Francesca and the citizens she works for, that indeed that funding gap that she already observed is getting close through the type of work that you are doing, Timothée, with your colleagues. So that's great. That's great to hear. I just wanted to go back to Carlos, because your line dropped a bit when we were just covering the energy performance contracting in relation to the SPVs. Maybe you can sort of repeat your answer there, but it would be a waste if we couldn't hear your wisdom there.
Yes, I was kicked out completely. So yeah, I think EPC's two main ideas there is about the profit sharing between the operator and the cities, because that's generating the environment that we need, and also because it's a fair way to do it, and also on the risk allocation. I think it's important that both parties understand the risks that they are best managing, and that they take them in a way that you have like a balance between the city and the energy service company, and you have them working together and not against each other. I think that's the most important thing. And touching on EPC contracts on street lighting, for example, which is like a classical. We've seen lots of small pilot on street lighting coming up, and from an investor point of view and from a taxpayer point of view, I think it's a bit of a pity that you are using public money to finance projects that can be done privately, because as we said, public money is not in excess, and if we are able to use that public money in other projects instead of doing things that a third party can do, I think it would be better. Again, here the key would be on making sure that the private money is the correct investor, and not somebody that just wants to take advantage 2-3 years and then run away. I think it's important to strike that balance. And yeah, private money, yes, but we need to make sure that the city has certain guarantees, because otherwise bad things happen, and we don't want that.
That's excellent, Carlos. Actually, it's a bridge between what Timothy was making a cry out for and what you're saying right now. Because indeed, private money can also leverage public money in directions that maybe represent what we might call intangible benefits for society at large. So that's very good. There's a question around so is there any experience or information available what types of technologies or sectors create sufficient cash flow for funds like yourself? And I guess it was made clear from your first slide, the types of sectors that you're investing in. But maybe you could sort of, for the audience, repeat where normally you would expect the sufficient cash flows.
We see street lighting as a no-brainer, because normally you can reach energy savings of 60-70% in the average city, and that unlocks not just retrofitting of the LEDs, but it normally allows for build-up of basic smart city networks. So you can start doing some CCTV, you can start measuring air quality, you can lay the grounds for a larger network platform, city platform. Another area that I think that would make sense is electrification of fleets. I think that's also a no-brainer, because there's lots of energy savings on that side. But from our side, you also have you don't have the market risk, because you know that the public buses are going to be charged every day, and therefore you can invest in that charging infrastructure without the risk of having a stranded asset in 5 years. Both of these have like a huge environmental impact, not just on CO2 reduction, but CO2 reduction within cities, which is important. And the third branch that we are looking into for cities is telecommunications, optic fiber networks. We've seen that some countries really struggled when everybody was working from home and switched from working from home, and bandwidth is something that it's not going to go down, so it's just going to increase. So I think those areas are areas that can go ahead. For example, in the US, we are privately funding optic fiber networks that cover the whole cities of 100,000 inhabitants, and we are doing that based on renting the optic fiber network to internet service providers. But the idea is to use that network as the highway for the data from the traffic control, from air quality, from air mobility in the future, and you name it. So I guess that, and one thing that I wanted to say is that when Timothy was mentioning of local, one of the challenges that I see when I'm talking to local cities is that sometimes not every city has the resources of a large city, of a Madrid, of a Rotterdam, of a Paris, and that means that they may lack the tools or the understanding of the technology or the finance or both. So I think that one thing that could be welcome for those cities is having like standard projects, standard areas that somebody in the European family says that this is how the European city needs to look like, and give them like a pool of 4 or 5 different areas. Waste management is another one, and say, look, we think that cities should be working on their waste, working on their street light, working on their electrification of buses, because they are really no-brainers, and they have a big impact, and they are bankable, more or less. So if the European Union could define like guidelines for then the cities to personalize, like customize for themselves, because every city is unique and special and has their identity, and that's good. You need to adapt, but it's also good to have like large standards, because that's where you get like fast deployment. And then regulations is something which also helps a lot. I used to work in Italy, and there I used to work for an energy company there, and in their power network, smart meters, powered smart meters, were compulsory. You could not choose between having a smart meter or a dumb meter. You had the smart meter if you wanted electricity, and otherwise you didn't have anything. In the UK, where I live now, you can choose whether to have a smart meter, and I think that in Italy they deployed 12 million smart meters in 3 years, and here they deployed maybe 1 million in 10. So again, those incentives, I think that may come from Europe, that those may also help to speed up.
Thank you, Carlos. That's indeed useful to indeed get the local action in place. Some templatizing and standardization and guidance for especially smaller cities is I think would be a very good thing to go beyond the usual suspects, as you say, the Parises and the Londons.
And working, sorry, just 1 second. And working within this European Conference of Mayors, and we've seen lots of lighthouse projects where they are giving a couple of 1,500,000 to deploy 500 streetlights, and that's like 2% of the city. What we can do is we can get those pilots and scale them up and say, okay, what do you need to cover the whole city? And if we go to large cities, even like regions, we can hit our minimum investment, which is around 7, 8, 10 million euro. So those would be projects that I think that from a European Union point of view would make a lot of sense and would be a good story to tell, because the European Union could say, look, I gave free public money to develop the idea, the concept. I did a pilot, and then privately that pilot has been scaled, and that works for street lighting, works for waste, works for electrification of fleets. So
exactly. So you need to create that funnel of projects from let's say innovation seed money, public money into in concrete bankable project that allow for a better society in those cities, because it's not just 500 street lamps, but the whole city is having these smart lamp posts. Yeah.
And one of the keys is about trust. So I think that maybe Francisca is nodding. Maybe Francisca doesn't ask for our money because she doesn't trust us. She doesn't know who we are, what we're doing. But that's because you don't know it yet. That's why we think that if we're under the European Union umbrella, that's something that can help cities say, okay, I don't know these guys, but if the European Commission trusts them, then I mean.
Thank you. I'm looking at on my clock here on my computer. I have 3 minutes left until official close. I just wanted to ask both yourself, Francisca, and Carlos, for maybe what is the key message for the audience that you want to part with? What is your recommendation for the audience to indeed be faster, better, and more cost-effective in your smart city journey? Francisca, do you want to comment on your recommendations, your key message for the audience?
Yes. Well, let's just start with saying that I'm very happy with the comment Carlos just made about public and private money, because I believe that as a local authority that we have this big responsibility of really being careful with what we spend the tax money or the public money on. So the trust aspect you just mentioned, I think is a very important one. But I'm also very happy with Timothy's intervention he just made, because I do believe that we can't win the energy transition only with infrastructure. I mean, that's a very important element of it. And I do believe that private money or private investments can play an important role there. But it's more than that. So we talked about the social aspects of it. The houses have to be upgraded. And we have to see how, as a city, we can also attract or find ways of pre-financing it, because we can't ask people to pay for an infrastructure that's not there yet. That's not possible. So I think that the European Union also has to figure out ways to kind of step up their game in that regard, because right now we do have a lot of possibilities by means of calls. And I mean, in our lighthouse city, we do get a certain amount of money, but it's not enough to actually succeed in the energy transition. So we have to find bigger or different means of financing, and I think we have to do that together and really find creative ways. Because 2035 in our case, but also 2050 in the European case, is really coming close. So we don't have the luxury of time to I think, yeah, wait much longer.
Thank you, Francisca. Carlos, and I also ask Anya and George to for their parting remark. Carlos, any recommendation?
Yeah, definitely. I think that I think that we are in a moment in time where we have seen lots of movement within the countries of the European Union. Some countries leaving, some others wanting to join. We also see the environmental challenge, and on top of that, we see COVID. So I think that the European Union is really in a very critical moment, and I think that this opportunity that they are giving the countries to show them that the European Union is there to help them and to create like a common market and build something together. I think that it's within us to make sure that initiative, that opportunity is well spent, because it would be very disappointing to see that funds and the big effort that lots of countries are doing to rebuild and to cohese, like to stick together the countries, is not used properly. So I think we are at a great challenge. I think it's a great opportunity, but we need to make sure that we spend the money well in projects that we need, that have impact, and not just things that are very like short term and don't go anywhere. I think it's a big responsibility, but it's also a big opportunity.
Thank you, Carlos. And I will take the order, George first, and then Anya can move into the checkout question for the audience as well. So George, so we take another 3 or 4 minutes, and then we should close the session. Thank you. George?
Okay. Yes, just a final remark to everyone. It was something that was said here, but I think that it's quite relevant to always keep in mind whenever you try to develop your project. Think about the financial issues at the beginning, at the very early stage. If you don't do it, if you leave it to the end, usually that doesn't work very well. So this is very relevant for everyone, because usually engineers, and I myself am an engineer, so we try to think about all the technical details, but we always forgot about the business models and how we will finance these projects, what are the cash flows, everything. So those things have to be in your mind also all the time. And as a last comment, an invitation to everyone to join our masterclass. You will get on the after this event an email with a flyer with all the information about the masterclass. So please do register. We will welcome you, and it will be very good to help you shape your projects.
Thank you, George. Anya.
Yeah, a lot has already been said. Yeah, I agree with the fact that we are running out of time. 2050 seems very far away, but it's not. But I also can see that in the latest years, the number of successful schemes and successful case studies is growing, like doubling and tripling. And at the same time, we have so many successful initiatives like the Smart Cities Marketplace, but it's also the EU City Facility or the Covenant of Mayors that are there to help and try to fill at least the initial steps and the gaps, and putting together investor and cities so that we can have Franciscas all over the cities of Europe. So really committed and happy to try and to, just go beyond just the approach that we are looking just for grants. No, we are looking for grants to mobilize then additional type of finance. So as we mentioned with the Smart Cities project. So from my side, this was it. We just wanted to take a couple more minutes of your time to tell us how did you feel, went today. We can go back if you would like on Slido, and again type dialogues. Just literally a couple of questions. If you can let us know what did you feel today, and we hope that thanks to the presentation and the dialogues, you have a better understanding of what investors are looking for when collaborating with cities. And here we'd really hope that the answer will be just in the range of agree and strongly agree. And this means we had a successful, I really think it was a successful dialogue, but it's always better for the participants to let us know what they do think.
And while you are working on the Slido, the slides will be made available to the audience, and I have seen that both Francisca and Carlos have indicated that they could be contacted post this meeting for any specific questions. So that's also great to hear, because we didn't have the time to cover all of your questions. So I'm glad to hear that the presenters are available for post meeting follow-up. That's great.
And above all, maybe I also take the time that people are answering to thank our fantastic moderator that did not have an easy job to make sure that everybody had their speaking time, but also all the interesting questions got taken on board. So thank you very much. It was a fantastic moderation, Elko.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm very happy to see that most of the people agree that the intervention today helped them have a better understanding of what investors are looking for when collaborating with cities. Just a couple of small questions. I know my presentation was quick, but I really hope now you have a better idea on how the Covenant of Mayors can help you with understanding finance options and possibilities. I will not leave here a lot of time. I think that the question is pretty straightforward. And of course, it's very easy to search online on our website for all the opportunities and possibilities. Fantastic. So very positive return of all the work we've put in this dialogue for today. And then the last question is, after the presentation, now you know what the Smart Cities Marketplace can do to help you with developing a bankable proposal. One more time, the amazing opportunity related to the masterclass, but also to get together with investors to understand innovative financing schemes, possibilities. So fantastic. So all positive answer. Okay. Elko, I leave it back to you for some.
Yeah, thank you, Anja. So let's leave it at this. I thank you very much for your participation and all of your questions. And it's very clear that we are touching on a very important topic where navigation and trust and making the right connections is essential, and making early connections is essential to make the energy transition work. We had a great intervention from Timothée, making a pledge for local solutions for citizens on the ground, and he's doing a lot of work to also get the big system of the European Commission working in the right direction to help the Franciscas of this world, but also to engage with the Carloses of this world to unlock the private finance to make Europe a better place to live. With that, I want to leave you, and I want to wish you a good day and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Stay safe.
Bye-bye.